Welcome in, Chiefs Kingdom. It is Sunday Night Live here on RGR Football. It's getting heated out there at camp. We're going to talk about everything going on, injuries, fights, the whole 9 yards. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Hope you're enjoying your Sunday evening. You're stuck. It's just me tonight. Dan is otherwise occupied. Some family stuff going on that they are going to be tied up a little bit. So it's just going to be you and me. We're going to take it easy. We're going to kick back, talk about what we see and what we want to see. Hey, Cody. Hey, Jackson. JC, nice to see you. Another Jackson, love seeing that. And Jay, everybody getting in here. If you would like sub and hit that bell if you're not already, that would certainly help. But I wanted to start tonight, and we will get to some of your questions. We'll figure out whatever we're going to chat about according to the chat. So if you're not in there yet, go ahead and pull up the live chat and get in it. If you're a member, hope that you got some questions lined up as well. Hi, Brenda. Nice to see you. This is where I really enjoy camp. This is not quite where I would normally go. I usually go right after the first preseason game. But when everything comes on and the pads and guys start hitting, things start to tweak. And so there's been a lot of news the last couple of days, and I've been off, working on the house and doing things around here that has kind of prevented me from doing a whole lot of ad lib like I normally would. I think come next weekend you'll start to see that come back, and I'll be on it. Hey, Mike. Daryl, Brenda's in. Taylor, what's up? What's up, Raz? Cody, I'm going to get to your question as well. And Alex, really good question. If you guys have questions, I'm going to star them. Go ahead and get them in there. But do me a favor, for those of you who aren't regulars, the regulars know, put some question marks at the beginning, because especially when it's just me, it takes me a little bit longer to dig them out of the chat because I'm going to get distracted, right? And Jay, that's another good question. So I think we'll start. I did a little piece on Locked On Chiefs yesterday about Kelce and about this aggression, right? And I think there's a couple of things going on, and they're actually all good for this team as far as my explanation goes. What's up, Antoine? Royce, nice to see you as well. Sunday night is about kind of reflection now until we get games, right? And reflecting on what's been going on once the heat started to get turned up with pads. It's about a younger generation of players, particularly on the defensive side, that are not quite living up to what they want to be, right? And competing against a guy like Travis Kelce makes you want to play better, makes you want to go that extra mile, make that extra play. And sometimes that turns into going a little bit past what the whistle is or what you think it ought to be. That's what I feel is kind of instigating some of this. Sorry, I'm grabbing some questions. I'm stacking those here for later. We will get to those. I really feel like that sets the team up. Like, that's a good thing. You want those guys, and Andy talked about it here the other day. You want those guys to have some edge. You want them to feel like they're starting to put themselves out there and take control of the game, because the last thing you want is an offensive side of the ball that feels like they can be dominant whenever they decide to light the fire. And I think we are there. I don't think there's any question on the offensive side. But you don't want the defense to get an inferiority complex either. Like, oh, we have to keep up. We have to make sure that we keep living up to that hype. We can't get down. And so you want those guys to play with an edge. And I think that's important. I think that tells you that the younger guys in particular, like, you don't impress me that much. I'm going to come at you just like I would anybody else. That's what you've got to have from the defense. And I think Kelce did a good job. And Andy illustrated also that Kelce went and made those comments about how he's got to be a better leader and a better teammate on his own. It wasn't instigated by Andy Reid. That's significant. That doesn't surprise me at all. Clearly, there's some frustration going on there. I'm not 100% where that comes from, but I will tell you this. Travis Kelce can get rattled as well, especially when it's hot. And every year that he gets older, I think it puts a little more pressure on him to be his Hall of Fame self. So that combination, despite the fact that you could call some of those questionable, pops after the whistle, little punch in there, trying to rip the ball out, all that stuff that's just annoying, that doesn't have to happen. Mitch Schwartz said it best. There's a reason for this. When a backup or a practice squad player, Travis doesn't need to take that crap. You got to also understand that you shouldn't be going after the stars like that. It's one thing if you're trying to compete and you're with somebody that you're saying experience level, something like that. But honestly, You don't cut Chris Jones, and you really don't do this stuff, Jocelyn Mahomes or Jocelyn Kelce or whatever. Like, so there's a little bit of, hey, like I deserve more respect, but that keeps everybody's edge. And so as long as they can come back to the locker room, and I think Josh Williams talked about this today, they can come back to the locker room, they can get along, they can, let bygones be bygones and get past it, then cool. It only becomes an issue if it continues to the point that it becomes a distraction for especially your leaders and your stars. That's what you got to guard against. You guys are doing great. There's a ton of questions here. Hey, Eric, nice to see you. I was just down there the other day, and I've been battling appliances here back and forth all on the Front Range today. So I may get down there again also. So all you Colorado Chiefs fans, it's nice to see you because we do get those looks, don't we, when we're walking down the street? I rather enjoy that myself. So it is what it is. I wear this. This is my favorite hat to wear out when I'm going downtown Denver or going to Springs or whatever, just to, I don't mean to instigate, but I like to kick people up a little bit. I'm kind of like one of these young DBs that are messing with Kelce. Like, let's just see what we can get started. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But on to the bad news. Isaiah Moore, who had a really nice OTA and had been getting some reps, as I understand it, that made him look pretty solid. I believe his is a knee. I didn't get the specifics on that, but he went to IR. And the really sad one is Najee Johnson. Najee has to go out and really hit the IR. If you're not on the 53 and you're on IR to begin with, you can't come back by rules of the CBA. So most likely we're not going to see Najee Johnson again. He could come back and work out with the team as that's part of the rehab process and all that kind of stuff, but you're not going to see him be eligible to be called up. As long as that, I didn't see the waiver wire hit yet, so I don't know that the transaction to the IR has actually happened yet, but that's as I understand for today. It's just a shame because he'd been making such a push lately. They were giving him reps with the ones where it was him, Snead, and McDuffie, and that's pretty significant. I'll say I think that he'll be able to bounce back. ACLs are different than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So I'm pretty confident there. But you just hate to see the momentum stopped. But I think he's got it in him. And the fact that they were letting him play outside on the boundary and moving McDuffie in to the nickel, that was the really intriguing part for me. And I've talked to a number of guys today that were there and put their eyes on what the team looks like today. We'll get to more of that later when we talk about Ross and Rice, et cetera. I think there's some questions in here too. So we'll do some questions. We'll come back to the major topic here. But my thoughts today are with Najee Johnson, who made a lot of upward mobility and a lot of improvement, played tons of teams for them last year. They're going to miss that aspect. They have to find more guys that can contribute in that way as well. So it's just sad to see, but we'll hope that he can get back. Let's jump up to the questions. You guys, again, if you're new, you're just joining the chat. It's Sunday Night Live. I'm Ryan Tracy. This is my channel, RGR. And it's just you and me tonight. So leave your questions with some question marks at the beginning, and that'll help me sort them out. Jay was asking, do you think we should be worried about Chris still not being at camp? The longer it goes, the worse it is for both sides. That's fair. I agree with the second part. I'm not ready to worry yet because at the end, he's under contract. And there's not much that can happen other than he sits out to the point where he feels he needs to get in so that he can be ready for the regular season, because no way around it. He's playing for this team this season. I'm remain optimistic that that's going to get done and the deal's going to be okay before then. I don't feel like it has to be anything super adversarial. I think you can get some things done that will lead down the road to an equitable arrangement. But if it goes on another week, we start to get in that point where, hey, maybe you do want to get something else. You start to look at what the alternatives are. And a lot of people have been throwing around the alternatives. So what are they? The alternatives really are the fact that you can franchise tag him next year. And I hate to see that get used, but the truth is what the truth is. It leads you to another year of being able to control it. It also leads to another year of what that animosity might come down to. So I really hope that that's not the way that it goes. But that is the absolute bottom line. So you can see that it is a possibility, and Chris Jones is going to be on this roster. I don't think that's really much of a question mark. So I'm pretty excited about the fact that one way or the other, a very motivated Chris Jones is going to be playing for this team this year. And that's really the thing that they need the most. We're going to look at some guys that might be able to step in for him later. But this is the bottom line. And I think our guy Frank did it pretty well when he was mentioning something today.
10 times in a row. And is it time now to reverse that trend, or what?
I wouldn't put a rivalry, and the rivalry is competitive. True false. And I'm on the Broncos now. I've been on the other side, you know what I mean? And we didn't call it a rivalry then. I'm with the Broncos now. Until we become competitive enough, we have to beat the team. We have to win our division. We have to do a few things, not just about the Chiefs. It's things we have to do here. We got to get our own ball together here in order for us to go out there and compete, for us to become one of those factions.
If it wasn't a rivalry,
I think that's really what you got to bring it all back to is this is a chink with the Chris Jones contract, but he's going to be here. They're going to be a dominant player, a dominant scheme. They're not in any danger of falling apart in any way because he will be on the roster. For Frank, by the way, who looks really, really skinny, he's got it right. Like, it's not that this is going to change anything for the Raiders or the Broncos. The Chargers just hit the magic point where they paid Justin Herbert. Everything changes now and how they maintain their roster going forward as well. So look for the competition to come, but also got to make sure that we know what's coming. And that is they're going to try to make a push this season like they always do. We'll see what happens. They do have a new, I just heard today, they do have a new training facility or training staff. So maybe the medical thing is going to get another look. We'll see. Jay, thanks for your question. Appreciate you. If you guys want to support the channel, go grab the gear in the gear store or hit the super chats here tonight. Every super chat, I guarantee you'll get an answer tonight. But Jackson want to know, I don't know what you guys think about it, but it seems like Chris might be trending upward again. Schefter said yesterday that NFL Live that both sides are still talking and want to get the deal done. And that's really where it is. Yes, they do want to get the deal done. How much they're talking is my question. And I know somebody said that Chris had liked a tweet of somebody else about him playing elsewhere next season. That's not going to happen. I hope that it doesn't get to that acrimony where they have to use the tag, but the tag is a viable option there. So it's really not going to change. If they did, there could be a trade and tag and trade scenario. I don't think we have to talk about that until we get there. So let's kind of hold off on that. I don't want to get too far down that road unless we see inklings of it, because I really just don't want to think about that. He belongs on this roster. I think he wants to be on this roster. Cody, hope you're doing good. Can we be slightly worried about Chris? Yeah, I mean, sure, that's totally legit. I'm still slightly worried because I don't want it to come to the point where it's August 18 or so. And I always aim to go to camp the couple of days after the first preseason game. And so it's a weird schedule this year with school starting and all that stuff. So we'll see what happens. But right in there is about where you would expect that if Chris is to the point where, listen, we're not going to get this done. I'm just going to play out this year. I'm going to show up because I got to get ready for week 1 so that I can go make my money for my next contract, whatever. I do think that's where, if it doesn't happen in a couple of, 3 weeks? If it doesn't happen, then that's when I'll get worried for sure. But I'm with you. Definitely keep an eye on it and be slightly, opaque about it. Alex, is Ross a lock to make the team? That's a very good point. And right now, what we got from Andy is that Kadarius Toney is moving forward. What he told us in about Najee Johnson and Isaiah Moore going to IR is that clearly they didn't feel they needed to do that with Kadarius. On another side note, Jody Fortson has a shoulder, but it doesn't look like it's going to keep him out for a prolonged time. So that's another plus. So what does that mean? It means Kadarius is going to be on this 53-man, right? So Kadarius, Guy, MVS, Rasheed. You got to have Rasheed. He's making plays. And we're going to talk about him and Ross compared here a little bit, but just in terms of making the roster. I think it comes down to those guys. And then today we heard Justin Watson, and the comments around Justin Watson were a little bit eye-opening, I think, because most people feel like he hasn't been making a lot of noise at camp. He hasn't been, really standing out. But Kadarius Toney is tweeting this afternoon that he's way more important than people give him credit for. You're hearing Andy Reid talk about him in a way that this is what happens because he does have the experience and the leadership. He talked today about making sure that he always knew he was coming back. He just had to field the offers from other teams and all that kind of thing. You know, it all comes back to, do you want to be here or don't you? And I think Watson does, and I think they want him here. So he's a 5th. Then there's Ross, and I think there's a really good, and a lot of people have given me crap about this, and Dan as well. I really think there's a great case for Richie James. I believe he should be here. If you get down to it, and this is where my theory came back from a couple of weeks ago, I really do feel like there's a possibility to keep 7 because you have such a high level, high floor of talent there. That's what I think is going to be really, really intriguing. I would be tempted to do it. And this is only because you guys know that we lost the fullback, and I'm a little salty about that, but I'm trying to embrace the new reality. When Andy Reid is like, hey, we got to move on from the fullback, then it's time for me to reevaluate my stance too, because I'm clearly the last man standing on the fullback front. That's okay. I can live there, and there is some adjustment. I do think it'll swing back eventually. I don't think it's going to go away from forever. But that allows a 7th, and that if they're keeping 7, yes, in my opinion, Justin Ross is a lock for this roster. Absolutely. If they're keeping 6, I think he's definitely in the mix right in there. If they're keeping 5, I don't think so. And that's all because Kadarius Toney has to be on the roster. Now, there is another way around that. And it is that if Kadarius is on the roster, but they do want to IR him, he's got to be on day one of the 53. He does have to be there. And then they can move him to IR, and it's the 3-week thing, and he can come back in the season and no big deal. It's just that if you go to IR in the preseason and you're not on the initial 53-man roster, you're done for the year. That's the problem. So it could be that Kadarius is on the roster, and maybe they have to let Richie James or Justin Ross. I don't think it's going to be Watson just because some of the things that people have been saying. But one of those guys has to go to the practice squad. We have to try to get him in the practice squad. And then you could put Kadarius on the IR, and then you could bring the guy right back. Who that is, I'm just not certain. So I personally feel like they're in good shape with the top 3 and Rasheed and Richie. And right now, I would say Watson's a little bit ahead of Ross. But again, if they're keeping 7, I don't think so. 7, he's on. 6, he's in the mix. I think why I put him on the cover here today is I don't think that he's done. The big thing is like he's getting his route running back. Last year, he didn't even really have that. Not like we saw at Clemson. But he's dynamic. You see in these highlights that he's able to cut much more so than he was in any of the training videos that we saw. The only question is the offense right now. And what will always be an asterisk over his head for the rest of his career is, can he stay healthy through a season? That will always be a question. Don't know. And Joseph, I just saw your question. I'm going to get back to, in fact, I'm just going to pop it up here since we're talking wide receivers. I think because Justin Ross has continued to progress, I think Remigio's got to go to the practice squad. I don't think he has a chance at the 53, at least initially. Unless, and this is the big caveat, if they really feel that they have to have a special teams only, like 6th receiver, he might be the guy. We have to see what happens in the preseason games. And from preseason game 1 to 3, really pay attention to who's doing well in the return game. Not just the guy who's returning it, but the return team, because that could be the difference. So that's going to be my asterisk for Remigio, because I do like him and I do think he has upside. That's just, it's a little too far to see with the emergence and the continued progression of Ross. Now, Ross just has to make sure that he understands the entire playbook. Right now, they might have a third of it installed. It's not the whole thing yet. So that's got to be something that we continue to keep an eye on. But everything from my cautious, I am still optimistic about him. I have been optimistic about him, but I was very cautious because this is the point last year where his injury came back and he had another problem. But he seems to be powering through that. And Justin Ross looks like he's getting better as camp goes on, and that's a good sign. The question is going to be, does he have it all up here to make sure that he can walk out there and at least play 2 positions? Because Andy wants you to play 3, but he's got to have you play 2. And if he can do that, then he has a chance to be on that 53. And I don't think we'll know that until we see some preseason game action, which can't get here fast enough, in my opinion. So, long answer on a short question. So thanks, Alex. Back to your original. Appreciate you bringing it up. Dave, thank you for the support. Appreciate you. If you guys want to support the channel, or me and Dan and Seth and Gary and whatever new contributors that we've been talking to you might see this season, you guys can do that by hitting the super chat, hitting any of the gear, that kind of thing. Dave's got a question as well. Please tell me I can get excited about the wide receiver room. I'm excited about it. You heard Justin Watson talk today about Sky Moore, and I think that's the exciting part too, because if Kadarius Toney was healthy and everything was fine, we could kind of just rely on that with everything that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Brett Veach have said this year about him being their number one, or what they expect to be their number one. I'd feel good about that. But in his absence, with Sky continuing to make plays, to be in the right place, to help out the younger guys, as I understand, I'm hearing things from camp that it's Sky Moore that's helping Rashee Rice when he has questions, or when he does get aligned in the wrong spot, he's helping move him. Sky's doing the same thing for Justin Ross. When there's small errors on alignment and that kind of thing, stack, he's helping. So now he's got it up here enough that he can step into what I think is Kadarius's role and play more of it. Now that's going to be spread around, but you're going to get a big chunk to Sky, Rashee's going to get some, and now Ross is going to get some, Watson's going to get some. So, like, as the room, I'm glad that you brought it up this way, David, because this, I think, is something to get excited about, because you have 6, maybe even 7 receivers that you feel you could put on a roster on a game day and walk out there, throw them balls, and make first downs. Do they have to be like, the 700, the 700 club where you can get 6 guys to 700 yards? I don't think that's a necessity. What I need somebody who can go out there and move the chains on a given day when we don't have KT, or when Kelce has an ankle flare up or something. I need guys that can move the ball and get down the field, and then something will pop. I guarantee you. The more chances you give Patrick Mahomes, the more likely is something's just going to explode. So that's where I'm at. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you. I know you have another one in here. I'm going to get back to it here. There's Kev asking the right question. The Chiefs have to carry 7 wide receivers. They're just too talented for them to not. And that's kind of where I've been leaning since Chris and I did the Locked On Chiefs 53-man post OTAs. We're starting to break it down more, and we did that, and that's when it really clicked to me. Like, I have trouble setting sail from any of these guys because of the upside, because of the ceiling. So that's kind of where I've been leaning, Kevin. I'm glad you bring it up, because that's kind of, I still want to see that. I'm just not sure if there's enough separation of everyone yet. And the whole thing with having to have KT on the initial 53 it's a worry, to tell you the truth, because whoever that 6th or 7th guy is that you don't take to the 53, he's going to be a target for every other team in the league. And that's the big question. Jesus, hope you're doing well. How worried do you think Cincinnati should be about Burrow? Not terribly. From what I understand, it's a high ankle? Not anything, a calf strain, high ankle, whatever kind of hybrid. Not anything that should lead to anything serious down the line. As I understand, soft tissue should be recoverable. No surgical repair needed, as I understand, unless you guys saw something this afternoon that I missed. I don't think it's too bad. The question will be, is you're not getting that training camp time. You're not getting into the rhythm. So the first quarter of the season might be a little rough. I think we'll know as soon as he gets back out on the field, like instantly. We'll know that first quarter of like how much is rust and how much was that they missed having him at training camp, because it looks like he's going to miss all of camp. And so that may be a distraction for them. Kevin, thank you. Looks like Bushman's balling. I think he will make the team. I have my fingers crossed. You guys know that I took a chance on him before he actually came out. He was hurt coming out of BYU, but he's been on my radar ever since, and I'm hopeful for him, because I think he offers more blocking ability than Jody and Noah, but he's, like you said, he's playing well. He's making catches. He's making plays. He's more of an offensive threat in the pass game than Bell is. And so it just depends. How do you anticipate to have to use him? If they're really going to use as much 13% person groupings that I think they're going to, they got to have a 4th. Because if you run 13 personnel out there, 8 or 10 snaps a game, you're going to have an injury. You're going to have somebody that has to take some time off, and you got to have a 4th guy ready to go. And in terms of, like, if it's Blake Bell, you have to change what you're doing. You have to change, like, when they do that triangle, Bell would have to be one of the blockers, because he's not going to be the guy at the back on those tunnel screens. You just can't set plays for him like that. So it would definitely change things. So I think Bushman has a shot. I got my fingers crossed for him. Jackson, with how impressive the wide receivers have been, any chance of keeping 7 growing? I hope so. I haven't heard anything. None of the beat reporters that I've talked to have heard that mentioned by the staff, but it's all in the back of everyone's mind. As I understand, it's kind of like, ooh, what would they have to do? How could they make it work? And that's what everyone's starting to come around to. I've been looking at it for a long time because I felt like this basically since Ross showed up in OTAs and was still able to contribute. I do like that. I know there's some running back questions. We're going to get to those as well. But if you just joined the chat, make sure you like and sub and hit the bell here and join us. Rogue Nation is our Discord. You can get there by joining over here and click that button. And then your YouTube account, when you sign into Discord, you just have to connect them. Super easy. Discord's made it a lot simpler for you to get access. And if you join at the rookie level or above, you automatically get in there to the full spiel. You can see some of my comments out there. A lot of the crew are over there. Stevie Keys and Gooch and Aaron are still over there. They're not on the streams as often anymore just because everybody's got a life. But you can find them over there, and it's a great conversation. For those of you who missed my members piece this week, you also get those members videos at the rookie level and above. So check those out. Thanks, Jackson. I appreciate that. I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation for us for 7 receivers. Alex, assuming everyone is 100% healthy, can you rank the wide receiver room as far as ceilings go? Whew. Okay, as far as ceilings. I'm going to have to keep KT on top because he does, if he can get healthy and stay healthy, he really does have that ability to be not Tyreek Hill, but a true number 1. Yes, it's a Z. It's not like, the big power guy, but he can be a number 1. At that point, for me, ceiling becomes Sky, Rasheed, Ross, MVS, Watson. Put Richie in there, probably right above Ross. He can move the chains. Is he more of a possession underneath guy? He has been in the past. I think he's got more to his game, so he's right up there. Ross still has all the potential in the world. The question has always been, can he stay healthy? I think what he's shown is that this preseason he's been able to adjust, working with Patrick and Dallas. He's actually running the routes better, and it all comes down to, and you hear Patrick say this in quarterback and any of the behind-the-scenes thing, it's about being where he expects you to be. That's part of why he and Kelce are so unique, right? Because that's what it comes down to is when things break down, do you have that expectation? So that's kind of how I feel. I will say this too, that I do like Remigio's upside. I just haven't been able to see his ceiling compared to the pros yet. In college, I felt like he could be a number 2. I'm not sure. I got to see how he stacks up to the competition. But what we need to look at is what our guy Justin is really doing, because I do want to illustrate that. I think this is the right one, where this just kind of lays in, and you can see. And I'm just going to let this run on a loop. Hopefully, this is the progression that I'm talking about. Is seeing this from Justin again, and I can't slow it down, unfortunately. But it's right here. You can see he's on the outside shoulder, right? So he had already stacked the corner to get him into the outside. So at that point, he's got to turn his body around to get that outside shoulder, which I wish he hadn't done, because if he could have turned the other way, he probably could have just waltzed in. But you can see here, as he disengages, he's able to fight through that. That's just the difference between a touchdown and a long gain. But I think that what you see from the way that he is physically is that it's that ad-lib. It's that ability in the air to readjust that maybe he wasn't comfortable with a year ago or 2 years ago. And that may have been because of the neck injury. It could have been because of the foot injury. You never know. But being able to do that when you have to adjust to a ball as it's flying through the air, that's a really good sign that that part is coming together. And neurologically, he's able to manipulate his body again and do some of the things that make him special. And so that takes me back to the upside and the ceiling that he has. Again, if he can stay healthy, he's right up there with Tony and Sky Moore as far as my impression is right now. Please tell me now that the pads are on, I can get excited about our writers. Yes. Sorry, Dave. I think I already put that one in. My fault. Don't mean to repeat on you. Jackson, it looks like KT is doing something weird with his weight distribution when he's being shifted. Could that contribute to injuries? And so do you think the Chiefs are aware? I do know that that's been on film for a while. And I do know that some of the knee ligament elasticity. Sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. I haven't even had a beer yet today, you guys. I know ligament elasticity was a question when you went through medicals coming out in the draft. And I don't think it's an issue. I'm sure that they're aware of it for sure. But that's also part of how he manipulates and makes missed tackles happen. That's how he breaks loose. And I think there's a certain point from Andy and certainly from Veach. You kind of want the player to be the player and just let it happen how it's going to happen. So if it were leading to injuries, if it were ankle sprains, if it were MCL, PCL strains, that's what really when you're shifting your weight laterally rather than straight forward or backward. You're going to see an ACL generally on deceleration going forward, twisting motion that still has your core momentum in a straight line in front of you. But those side ones generally come into the other ligaments. I don't think we see much of that. So it could be a contributing factor maybe to the soft tissue. But this latest one, the meniscus tear, the cartilage, they're all kind of interrelated. That's generally something that's just wear and tear. I don't think that's anything about the way that you move contributing to it any more than it does for any other player. Jesus, do you think the Chiefs should move on from Jody Fortson? I do not. Again, I don't like all the injuries. I totally understand when people are frustrated by that. I get it, but I don't think you move on from him yet. There's just too much potential there. Is it a heartbreak? Is it another reason you have to keep 4? Yes. And maybe, I think he's 27. Maybe next year, that's a year you got to talk about if he's hurt again. But I think he's going to come back from this, and let's hope that he can get through a season. Jackson's got another one. Also, you're in the healthcare industry. I've seen you make a lot of opinions on injuries. And are you in the? Yes. I am a physiologist. I have a master's degree in exercise physiology. I was a strength and conditioning coach for over 20 years. I have trained over 40 athletes who did make the NFL. I have interned and worked with a number of NFL strength coaches. So yeah, I still work in the healthcare industry in another area of it, not in physiology, in cardiology, and in software. But that's just the career path that my life took. But I am still there, and I am still on all the physiology boards and that kind of stuff. So that's part of my day job as well. Let's see. Cody. Yes, absolutely. Des, should we worry about Felix? Feels like George was better in camp last year than he is right now. And that's fair, but I haven't seen enough from the little clips and a couple of comments that I've gotten from people. It looks like he's still working in. This is like missing OTAs was the foundation that he didn't get. And so he's still kind of working into it. It is a different situation in terms of timeline versus George, but you have a good point that Karlaftis did seem a little bit ahead of him, but it's also just the third day of being able to hit and being able to actually apply yourself. And I do think there's a acclimatization period that he has to go through to like understand, full speed, which, at this point, full speed padded practice is really about 85% for most linemen. Offensive and defense. So he's got to get into that rhythm a little bit. So I'm not pulling the panic button yet, but yeah, he does seem like he's a little bit behind where Karlaftis was, but I do think he's going to be used in a way that is going to allow him to take his reps as he needs to and get that back under his legs. Look for the second preseason game to be big for Felix is the way I feel right now. Brenda, thank you. How many and who will be the wide receivers now? So like I said before, I do think you have to put KT on there. Andy seems optimistic. Maybe he'll even be back, and like it won't be a question of sending him to IR. But KT, MVS, Sky, Rasheed, Watson, Ross, James. Those are the 7. How many they keep and in what order? The last 3, I think, are going to be a battle because I think Richie's been putting up good numbers, but he's got a very different role from what Watson and Ross do. So it's going to be a question there. There's a lot of guys that are like that 5'10" to 6 foot dude that can do a little bit of everything, but it's hard to stand out that way in this group. Thank you, Brenda. Cody, thank you. Thoughts on Kelce throwing haymakers at practice? Well, and like I said, I did a little piece on Locked On Chiefs, and like I started the show, it's clearly a frustration point when Travis Kelce is doing that, but it also shows that it's a more competitive camp. Maybe in some ways it shouldn't be. Maybe the younger guys, practice squad players, shouldn't be going after Kelce like that. But that certainly was a temperament issue. And I don't know how he's feeling. It was back-to-back days where he was getting in a couple of scraps, and that was the second one, right? I didn't hear of any animosity today with anybody, but clearly that's something going on with Travis as well. So like he's the common denominator. What's coming from that? I really don't know. How far would a kicker have to kick a field goal consistently to be a first-round pick? I don't know, 100 yards. I mean, I would never do it. So I do think someone might, if they were, consistently a guy that could hit 60 plus, somebody would take a look at him. I wouldn't, but that's just me. Tyler, I was there today. Awesome. Watson had multiple drops, 2 in a row at one point. He belongs on the roster, though. Richie James stood out to me today. Okay, good to know, Tyler. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. And I heard it's been drop city for Jody. Ross has had a few. I hadn't heard about Watson, but who was the other one? There's somebody else I was thinking of that had a couple of drops. I think it was yesterday that they were contagious. It was so bad. So appreciate you letting us know, Tyler. Can we accept the fact that Justin Ross is better than painted last year? I don't know. If you mean painted by me, I think he's definitely progressed in his ability to display what he has. I don't feel like he's learned new skills. I'm just glad to see that he seems to be back to where he was physically when he was in college. So I'm happy for that. But the question still remains is that sustainable? Can that injury history hold off? But yeah, I think we can definitely accept that he's progressing for sure. But I didn't think he'd make the roster last year, and that was before the injury and all that. So I can't say that I have to rebuild my whole persona on MJ. But yeah, I hope everybody's happy for him because I am. And I think he'll continue, again, as long as he can stay healthy. Sky's the limit for him. If he could get back to that kid in 2019 was his last full season. If he got back to that kid, it's a gem you got here. It could be as big a revelation as getting Tyreek in the 5th and watching him turn into what he turned into. Again, it's just about being healthy. Do you think Remigio had a chance? I think he did until Ross really started to step up. Now I think he's probably bound for the practice squad, but that's okay. He's got time, and there's going to be more opportunity coming down the line. So I wouldn't worry about Remigio too much. They do seem to like him, as I understand, and it does feel like they're going to find a way to get him on the practice squad. I don't think there's a ton of people coming for him. So, I don't think it's going to be like a gold rush to go sign him away from the Chiefs, but we'll see. I'm just stacking a few more questions, you guys, and we'll get through those here shortly. I do have a question for you, though. If you would hit it in the chat, if it comes down to KT not being able to play and Sky and MVS are your starters, who do you want to see out there with them as the third guy? We know that they're going to run, 60% 11 personnel, right? Who do you want to be the third guy out there if KT can't play the first couple of weeks? That's what I want to know from you. Throw that in the chat, and we'll circle back here in a second. And Josh, I was just talking about Felix as well. I'm grabbing more questions here. Oh, Cole made it. Nice to see you. Gary, nice to see you. Who else? Jacob, thank you. Getting down here, you guys. And thank you for the super chats. I'll definitely get to you guys as soon as possible. Oh, Lil Caddy, thank you for reminding me. I knew there was one that I had not gotten to. Actually, there's 3 that I haven't gotten to. Thank you for reminding me for that. I will get working on that. Okay. So, Josh. Nope, just got that one. But yeah, Felix, I think we're going to hear more as camp goes on. It's been a little sparse for him, at least I haven't seen one-on-ones because I don't have anybody down there with a camera. I'm not going to be able to go until later in camp, maybe the last couple of days if I can get there. Dan's going to be out there somewhere around the time, so we'll definitely be checking in on Felix. I guarantee you. Donnie, thank you for the support, buddy. With Ross being 6'4", is he the tallest Chiefs receiver they've had in a while? Am I crazy about Matt Bushman getting on the 53? You're definitely not crazy. It's going to come down to, I think they have to keep 4 tight ends. It's going to come down to Bushman or Bell. And it's just going to be about comfort level. If Bushman can make Patrick feel comfortable with him and Andy Reid feel comfortable with him, I think they'll be okay, and they can thank Blake for his contributions and put him on the practice squad, where he can work out and make a little bit of money and not have to disappear from the sport. You know what I mean? But I do think his time is coming. I think it's a couple years overdue, to tell you the truth, but that's just me. Now you have a viable option, it feels like. We will see. And is he the tallest receiver the Chiefs have had in a while? Meaning if he makes the 53, yeah, I would think so, because MVS is 6'3", shorter than him. Justin Watson's shorter than him. I'm trying to think if there's been another target that size. It does not feel like it, no. So yeah, he may actually be, unless I'm forgetting someone, he may be, if he makes the 53, he will be the tallest receiver in a while. Good point, Don. I appreciate you. Leon, thank you, pal. I was at training camp on Saturday, awesome, and did not see Najee Johnson going down. It must have happened indoors after the storm. Oh, I didn't realize that either. The one I saw down was Menahue. I hope he's okay. As I understand, he's fine. I understand from guys that I talked to, he was nearly unblockable too. So he's, I know we were teasing him a little bit because they're having him drop and get into space during OTAs. Not his thing. But evidently he brought the pass rush, and he's in full form, ready to go, as I understand. I saw his presser. He seems adjusting well, as good as we could expect. So let's keep our fingers crossed. I'm kind of ready for it. That would be good for me to see, because I am a little intrigued by that. And I do want to make sure, I got to make sure that they have enough pass rush to go around. That's what I'm confused by. That's the thing that keeps me up at night. Cole, and thank you, Leon. Appreciate your support, bud. Do you think that we keep 4 running backs? I think they have to. The question is going to be, does that mean only 8 linemen? That might be the decision point that comes in. But I think Deneric Prince has put himself, like, you can't get him to the practice squad, I don't think. I think he's made a name that they want him in there. The fact that he's been running so much with the ones, with Pacheco out. Clyde's hurt now as well. McKinnon. He's not going anywhere. I think you have to keep all 4 of them. I don't know. Let me see what happens here in the next couple of weeks, particularly in the games, and we'll see what we think of that. Welcome in. Getting a bunch of people here all of a sudden. You guys must have finished up something else. So welcome in. This is RGR Football. I'm Ryan. Make sure you like, sub, and hit that bell. We are talking about some of your questions and what's going on at camp today. Nice to see you guys. Dirty had a question. Just got here. Have you talked about Johnson going down, and do we get someone to replace him? We did talk about that. I'm really sad to see it, because I was really happy for him in making his progression. Let me pull up. They did make 2 signings, a tight end that I did not recall. Trying to look for it here. Was it Gaither or Gaithing was his name? They did sign him, and they did sign a wide receiver that had been here that went and then came back. I'm looking for the name on that as well. Give me just a minute. Anthony, it's not a wide receiver. It was a defensive back. Anthony Witherstone from Merrimack. It was one of those guys that was at the rookie tryouts. So they brought him back. On a good note, Drew Tranquil got back at practice today. Who else was missing? KT. Oh, Mike Dana was still out with a calf strain. Fortson was the shoulder. So I think that's the updates. Nate Taylor said that, and I haven't talked to Nate today, but Nate Taylor said that Noah Gray had a really good day too. I didn't see anything on that elsewhere, but if Nate's happy with it, I am happy with it. So, Steve, trade for Jonathan Taylor. I know that there's a whole lot of hubbub coming out of Indy right now about that. Irsay doesn't want to do it. And I think that he, in particular, maybe not even Chris Ballard, but I think Irsay in particular would demand so much capital for Taylor just to make a point now that it would never be possible for the Chiefs. I don't think that they'll do that. Does the defense have a chance to be top 15 this year? Zach, I think that it does, as long as Chris gets back into camp and he's not at any like physical detriment. As long as he can be him, I do think that they have a chance to be top 15. Maybe even push towards top 10. I'm really pumped up about where the secondary is going to go this year. How many injuries do we have? Okay, so that's what I was just kind of breaking down slightly. Not in depth yet, but let me run that back one more time. So the players who were not practicing today were Kadarius Toney, Fortson, Mike Dana with the calf, Turk Wharton, who's coming off the ACL, Nazi, and Isaiah Moore, and obviously Chris Jones. Moore and Nazi have gone to IR. We understand, but I haven't seen the transaction yet. So I'll let you guys know probably tomorrow on the live Q&A. If you guys didn't know about that, is tomorrow night. Kale, is Snead's injury the same as last year, and should we be worried? As I understand, no, it's not the same as last year. And I've been told that they're being super cautious with him, and it's not an issue. I hope that that's the case, but I've got that from two sources that seem to understand what's going on, so I'm going to roll with it. Stay with me on the light side, buddy. I think we're good. Does it surprise you that John Ross retired? You know, I had heard that he was having some struggles adjusting to the offense. It is a particularly difficult offense to learn. And then he had a case of the drops. And so it surprised me, yes, but not like out of the blue. It surprised me that it happened now. I thought he'd go through camp and see where he landed, but he was not getting much run. And I can understand frustration there is something that makes you make poor decisions. I think it was a poor decision on his part. So going to grab some more questions from you guys. Nice to see you all. Knicks fans here. Nice to see you, bud. Let's see. Mark, I just answered yours, so I'm not going to put it back in there. I'm trying to hit the topics, not necessarily every single question, but I'm going to get there. Let's see. Thank you, Cole. Appreciate you. And thank you, Gary. Everybody give Gary a hand. He's one of our mods. We appreciate you. And Cole, I need to get you set up as well, pal. Ryan, why do the players now care more for money than legacy? It's because they got rings. It's honestly the way that it goes. You saw this happen with the Cowboys after their big run. You saw this happen with the Broncos in the Elway years. Not so much after the Peyton Super Bowls in Denver, but a little bit. I think it's now, especially for the older generation, the guys that are 30-ish, like Chris, that it's like, okay, I've accomplished a lot. I do have a legacy established already, and I need to get paid too. I don't know that they care more than 10 years ago. I think it's the business side has caught up to a lot of it, and it's the agent structure and the I think over aggression of the agents quite a bit. I think right now you can blame part of this holdout on the agents, in my opinion. But I think that's a force that or a factor that we don't really talk enough about, Gary. That's my personal opinion. Jacob, why do we not have Jay Reed do squib kicks instead of Bucker to close out games? Just something that bothered me in the playoffs last year. I wonder if they won't this year, but my guess is they just didn't have enough practice time to get that done where they felt really confident with it. I think he's certainly capable. It's just about, do you dedicate that time to practicing it? And I don't think Andy's going to pull many things unless he has time to practice it. When they've gotten in that pinch before where they've had to do something because somebody had the ability, I think it makes Andy cringe, to tell you the truth, Jacob. Appreciate you. Steve, should we pump the brakes on the Justin Ross hype train? Honestly, no. The hype train has been overwrought. I will give that. And I've been trying to be realistic and honest with everybody, saying that, yes, he has ability, but until we see it, we got to stay calm and cautiously optimistic, but not jump on that super hype train, right? But now we're starting to see progression. And so now I think it's not as much hype. I think it's more reality. Now it's looking more and more like maybe he can sustain this, and maybe he is learning the offense. Maybe he is able to manipulate and adjust to routes like he did in college, which we haven't seen in years. So I'm actually the opposite, Stephen. I'm starting to put on the gas a little bit because now I feel like I'm seeing some of the things I need to see to feel like, yes, he can reach his ceiling. and at least make the roster this year. So I actually would flip that. I would say, let's be real about it now. And another one from you. Would you and Dan be interested in doing a reaction video for your Chiefs draft breakdowns from years past? Yeah, we've toyed with doing that in the past, just kind of doing like learn from your mistakes kind of segments. Honestly, it's just the time. We are so overwhelmed during draft season. Is going back to other years has been tough for us. We're hoping to have more help this next year. EJ's been great, and Damian helped us this year, and we're looking for more. The team over at NFL 33 is growing as well, which should give us both a little bit more time. We're adding Billy Rossetti, if you guys know him. We're adding Brandon Olson. Quinn Carey is going to come over. You've seen Quincy on here before with me. So NFL 33 is expanding. If you're not subbed over there, go get subbed. It's super. It's like you can, with the main discount, you get like $5 a month. And we have a really great group of not only writers, but video guys as well. So we can give you a little bit of everything. Does Nazeeh Johnson affect Snead's future in KC at all? Kirk, that's a great question. And I would like to think that they're compartmentalizing it so that it wouldn't. It shouldn't on paper, right? But with Watson and Williams getting downgraded a little bit, they're not getting as many reps with the ones as they did last year. Maybe that was feeling it out. Nazeeh's been getting a lot of that. So that was probably their comfort zone. Does that put a little bit more need on Snead? Maybe. The need for Snead is another t-shirt I have to do, you guys. I swear. I have more ideas than I have time. But I see where you're coming from, and I do think it's a little bit, in a perfect world, it wouldn't be related, but I do think that Nazeeh's next season, while I'm sure he'll be his repair will go fine and he'll be back at it. I'm really intrigued to see if he can actually step back up. You saw Juan take 2 years. You've seen some other players have to take 2 years, and that's more and more common these years, where the repair goes so well so fast that you just don't have the confidence in it. You know what I mean? So I'll be really interested to see how Nazeeh does. That's honestly a really personal thing, and it's about the dude's internal makeup, about how he feels and how he trusts his rehab. So it may put a little bit more pressure on getting Snead back in, which, hey, I'm here for. Sky's the limit merch. Yep, that's the one, Caddy. Man, in fact, I got to take a screenshot of that right now. Putting that back on top of the ID pile because I got to get that out. Good Lord. It's been a while. Gary, does it seem that all teams fight injuries at training camps? Yes, they all do. When the pads come on, that's a leap. Like we always talk about the staircase to the postseason, right? Well, we leave out the preseason quite often, and it's like you come down and the season's way down here. I'm trying to do this in the camera so that it looks right. Let me take this off real quick, Gary. So you're down here postseason, right? You've won a Super Bowl. You go to the parade. You're kicking back. You get a week or two, and then you start to work. And then you step it up, and you're working your offseason program. You go see Patrick. You're up here. Let's see if I can get that angle right. You're moving right. You're feeling good. You're starting to rehab. Any aches and pains have probably been dealt with by then. Then you get to OTAs and you raise it up a notch, and you're going and you're learning and you're moving around, but you're not really in contact. And then you come to camp and you pass the field test, right? And you get the conditioning test out of the way, and you're starting to learn stuff, and you're putting in an install. And then boom, it's a big leap up here when they go to pads. Pads is another leap up to the preseason game. Preseason goes to the regular season game. Regular season goes to the playoff. And that's where you're over the top. So you can see in that progression, like over half of that staircase is in the preseason. So I don't think I do a good enough job talking about it enough, to tell you the truth. But each one of those levels, when you take a step up, generally coincides with a higher uptick in injuries. In the offseason, it's a lot of soft tissue stuff. Come pads, it's a lot more of the obvious, the contact-related things. Shoulders, hips, wrists, ankles, those kind of things. But that is pretty normal. All teams go through it. Chiefs have been really good lately, last few years, about keeping it from being something that derails their progress. So great question. Thank you for that one. Chiefs fan, glad you're back. Mr. Nix, everything I hear would like to see Rice and Ross. Yes. And that's kind of where I'm leaning as well. I really want to see 7 because I think they want Watson on the roster, and I want Watson on the roster. He was the guy last year that I was skeptical about until I wanted him to prove it. And that's just the coach in me. I can watch a million games on film and feel like you can do this. You're capable of doing this. I need to see you do it. I need you to prove it to me. So I generally take the I avoid hype like the plague. You got to prove it to me as you go, and that's pretty much always. That leaves me being behind the curve on some guys like Ross, and that's okay. I'd rather be wrong and be like, I wasn't excited enough than be overhyped and be absolutely out of the water, But I'm with you. Rice and Ross and Watson, I want to see them all. Kale, appreciate you. If there is a hypothetical scenario where one or the other makes it, do you likely think they would choose Ross or Prince? Ooh, that's a great question, because that comes into building the whole offensive side of the whole roster, and that becomes a lot more problematic because is a 6 wide receiver, and I'm just putting him there randomly, maybe 7th, I don't know, worth more than the 4th running back? It depends on the health of everybody in front of you. It depends on what you think you can get done. Can you get Ross? Who do you think you can get to the practice squad and retain him so you can call him up later? It's probably more likely right now that you can get Prince to the practice squad better than you can get Ross to the practice squad. That should play a factor, because the whole idea is whoever you expose to waivers, you could lose. And you want to get them back to the practice squad, so then they're there and you can call them up whenever you need them. And so I think in this scenario, Kale, it would probably be putting Prince to the practice squad, going with 3 running backs and pulling him up, than trying to expose Justin Ross right now. If he keeps making plays like he has been, that's going to start to get out more and more and more. The national media is starting to pay attention. When that happens, that the other pro personnel, for those of you who don't know, in every front office, there's a group of guys that work pro personnel. They watch film, game film in particular. Sometimes there's some practice film dusted around, certainly highlights of the other pro players, so that if somebody gets cut, if somebody goes to the practice squad, they can try to grab them. That's their whole job, is managing the professional, already pro guys, not scouts that are scouting college, guys that are scouting the rest of the league. Jesus, how many games will the Broncos win this year? I have faith in Peyton. He's a very good coach. And from what I've seen in the local media here, Russ has lost some weight. He looks like he's going to get more mobile. Peyton says they're going to move him out of the pocket a lot more. Go back to what he did so well in the early days in Seattle. They do that, I think they can get to 500, or I guess what counts as 500. I think they can win 8 games, go 8-9. They ain't beating the Chiefs, though, I'll tell you that. Scott, welcome back. Thank you, buddy. How do the Chiefs justify handing CJ the highest paid DT after Herbert's contract, making Mahomes 7th or 8th highest paid QB now? They don't have to justify it. That was already part of the scenario. As soon as Patrick signed, he knew he was going to fall down the list. Now that's an issue for me. 7th or 8th, that's pretty far down the list. We had hoped that you wouldn't get that far down until next year. You know, a couple of guys, two, 3 guys a season, right? It's going a little bit faster than I thought. But the defensive tackle position is very different, and there's fewer of them. So you don't have to justify it because Mahomes had the expectation that this was going to happen. You have to justify the fact that it's the age of the player at this point, and defensive tackles don't play as long as quarterbacks on average, by about 6 years difference, if I remember the number correctly. So justifying paying him if it's a long-term contract, which I don't know. I have not been able to confirm what the hubbub is, if it's just money or if it's length. And I have a tendency to think that it's also about the length of the contract as well. So that, I think, is a bigger deal. But I will say this. If they had to justify it to someone, whether it's Clark Hunt or the fan base or whoever, they could make it by doing this and saying, if Patrick doesn't have a Chris Jones, an elite pass rusher on the other side, then he's going to have to score 40 points a game. That's going to make him throw more passes overall. That's going to allow him to be hit more often and open him up to more injury risk. So despite having to pay somebody an exorbitant amount of money, it does keep Patrick healthier as a whole. And that's probably how they would put it. Jackson wants to know, does he sign this week? It doesn't feel like it. I'm going to say that because I'm usually wrong about these things. So I'm going to say, no, he doesn't. And that should make it happen here within the next couple of days, I'm pretty sure. Chris Clark will tell you all about my prognostication skills that don't exist. I can only go by what I hear and what I feel from people that I trust. And honestly, in this negotiation, I'm not getting much from anybody who actually knows anything. And that's the part that is concerning to me. I would think that I would have heard more by now from folks who are familiar with the agents and with Chris in particular and this team. So I'm a little skeptical. Travis, coming from an injury perspective, how deep we go into the season every year, do you see Andy Reid softening up training camp a bit and not making it one of the hardest camps in the NFL? I don't think so, because it fits his philosophy. And I'll explain why. By going hard in camp, it means that he can be more light during the season, especially during the playoff push and the playoffs themselves. It allows him to not grind his team down, but he's still got to harden them up, right? So what I'm really interested to see is this camp in particular is longer, right? We have 6 extra practices this year because they began so early. So my question is, do we start to see after the second preseason game where they would still be practicing as though it was camp, do we start to see them just back off to 10-10-10s and really like hit that? So like the camp portion remains the same number of days that we've seen in the last few years, even though the whole preseason is longer. Does he lighten up before the regular season? That's what I think will be really intriguing. My gut says that may be the way that it goes, Travis. Caddy, thank you. Genuine question. Earlier you said Ross is limited in ceiling because of injuries. I'm just curious why you're not saying that about KT when he's got as many injuries at least. It's real simple because Justin Ross's are way more significant. Spinal fusion is significant. Fractures of the foot are significant and they can recur, whereas soft tissue is generally about management and you can get over that. This meniscus one is more concerning. I agree with you. And so that does put that there. But generally, guys, the taller guys have more injury concerns over the course of their career because their levers are longer. And so that puts more stress on all of the joints, particularly in the lower body, the hip and knee. Ankles, you can generally get by with, with the shoe technology and the high tops and that kind of stuff. But that's why. It's because the severity of Justin's previous injuries are way worse than KT's. So that's the only reason. And that's just my gut opinion, though, based on my experience. Team physicians might tell you, it makes no difference. Their physicians, they get their own opinion too. I just know what I've seen happen. Thanks, though. Appreciate you, Caddy. And Knicks fan, appreciate you. They need to give Jones what he wants. I mean, I agree to a certain point. He's earned it. He's been the light at this tunnel. When you dump a bunch of money into Hitchens and you dump a bunch of money into Frank Clark and you don't get either of those contracts to pay off, it's been Chris that's been pulling it through. I'm with you there. But at the same time, it's like giving top of the league money to a 30-year-old at that position is troublesome. I think there's a reason that Aaron Donald's contract has an out in it after next season, because it's just hard to really think that you can get your money back and the value for that. So I hear where you're coming from, and I do want it to get done. I would hope that they can still meet in the middle. In my opinion, it should be between 27 and 28 million is where I think it should be. But hey, it is what it is. Let's see. Next, Jesus, thank you, sir. What kind of production do you see from Sky having on his second year? I think he needs to be, and I think he can be, an 800-yard receiver with 6 touchdowns minimum. I expect and I hope to see a 1,000-yard receiver that gets in the end zone 8 or 10 times, especially if Tony has to miss time. He has to. So that's my expectation. Thanks, Jesus. And thank you, Knicks fan, again. Keep 3 RBs to me, 110, and Prince, let 25 go. Okay, and that's certainly a scenario. You save about $825 on the cap that way. Usually the cap is going to be a consideration there, but hey, if you play your way into it, you play your way into it. And if you get passed on the depth chart by another rookie, fair enough, Knicks fan. I can get behind that. Do you have O-line predictions? I think they're keeping 8, max 9. That's kind of where I feel as well. Again, between the need for wide receivers, the need for 4 tight ends, I think they need 4 running backs. I think you got to go lighter. And honestly, I think they have the makeup that they can do that. I think you have Wanye Morris is going to be the swing tackle. I am pretty sure. I don't know where Lucas Niang is going to end up on this roster. And that said, you have Prince, you have Kennard, you have Allegretti. There's 9 guys. You can get by with less than that probably. But I agree, 8 is probably where you need to be. Can Sky get to the St. Brown level player? Yes, I think so. Particularly with Mahomes as his quarterback. I do think that is well within striking distance. How quickly is going to be the question. Stuart, keep 6 or 7 on the 53. Yeah, I would go 7 right now. What's up, Zach? Thank you. RGR Nation is the Discord name, and Zach nailed it right there. Thank you, guys. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell. We're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. Very high expectations for Brian Cook. You and me, Ryan, I do as well. One of my favorite players that came out in last year's draft, and everything that we've seen from him this year seems to be pointing that he's going to live up to my expectations. So I have them very, very high as well. Let's see. What percentage that Chris Jones will return? 99.9. He's under contract. He doesn't have any other choice. He would have to pull Lev Bell and sit out for the year in order to not play for this team or play, period. If it got really acrimonious and he reported and demanded a trade, that could be a possibility. I don't see that happening. But yeah, he will definitely return and play. Cole, I feel like Jones either gets the extension or retires because he said he won't play for another team. I don't know, man. I can't see him retiring. He's too elite at this age to let I think at least 2 seasons where he can still be ultra productive go. So I don't see that happening. I think he plays for this team, and I don't think it's going to be a big deal in the end. This is, again, I really feel like this is agent driven, trying to get the most money that you can get. And I don't think it changes anything about Chris wanting to play for this team and with these players. So, Chiefs KT, welcome to the memberships. If you joined at the rookie level, I didn't see that yet. Make sure you connect your Discord and your YouTube, and you'll get in. And let's see, this from Mizzou 19. Connect the dots. The Chiefs are not concerned about the spine going forward. If they felt he were still a disproportionately higher risk of a spinal cord injury, he wouldn't be here. Yeah, that has nothing. Spinal cord injury is not anything to do with what I'm talking about. It's lingering neurological deficits. It doesn't have to be a spinal cord injury. That would take a serious impact. It's the degradation of the ability to move, because you can have inflammation in that fused area that ends up putting pressure on discs, which puts pressure on nerves, which can take out bursa sacs, all kinds of things that degrade your ability. I'm not talking about like having him be hurt anywhere near on par with like DeMar Hamlin or anything, Mizzou. I'm just talking about it could degrade him if he were to have a recurrence of that injury, or he were to develop something from impacts, collisions, tackling, etc. It could just diminish his ability to play the sport. Not like it would be like a life-threatening thing or anything like that, like a spinal cord injury really would be. But yes, you're right. They have checked him out. They have all the information they have because they have MRIs and CAT scans and the whole 9 yards. So they definitely are making an educated choice, and that's why I think we can be comfortable with it. Let's see. I would say put Watson on the practice squad. You don't want to risk losing Ross to the Bengals. We all know how they be. Well, that's a fair point. And I don't know. The money makes me think that they want Watson on the roster, but he's probably less likely to get poached from practice squad. That's absolutely true. And we'll finish with Knicks fans. Gary hit the right one, though. If you guys would hit the like button, we would appreciate it. Would be cool. I think for everything that he's done, he deserves 27 or 28. Okay, cool. That's kind of where I'm at too. So I'm with you on the number. I think they just have to meet in the middle and get to that point. So we appreciate you being here with us, especially on a night when it's just me. Dan should be back later in the week, but I'll be here for the Q&A tomorrow night. I hope that you guys are too, because you're running that one. I know we answered a lot of questions tonight, but there's been a lot going on this weekend. We will answer more tomorrow. They are practicing again, and we will have more information. So I hope that you guys have a great one. Here's a little shot just to show you what we're seeing out there from Prince. I meant to get this earlier in the chat here, but a guy that's pushing for the roster, you got to dig that, right? So you guys have a great night. Tonight is Sunday. Games are coming. We're going to keep this live. Sunday Night Live will always be post-game, no matter where it is, Thursday, Monday, whatever. But we'll have the live stream. So I hope you guys have a great Monday morning. We'll see you tomorrow night again for the Q&A. Have a good one.